your hands on top of your head.
Well, I didn't.
Now!
Here comes the jam. Getting down with the truth. The only way he knows how to. Girl, what's his name? We call him the Chief. The Chief? You're damn right. He's gonna get that sucker. Yo, we track down the truth. You know what? I track down the truth. You know. And what do they call him? We call him the Chief. The Chief? You're damn right we do.
I'll bet your mother had a loud bark.
Good morning. This is Morning Coffee with the Chief. I'm your host, Patrick Jordan, here on Pop Culture Minefield. You can follow this show or you watch this show every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Pop Culture's YouTube channel or their Rumble page. Now, if you're watching us on Rumble, be sure that you follow us over there. Obviously, you subscribe on YouTube and make sure you like the show. Now, today's show, before I get into all my little preamble, we're gonna review the movie Sharky's Machine, directed by oh my God, Burt Reynolds. I'm losing it there. That's a senior moment. You just saw it on TV or on YouTube. Senior moment. Anyways, but before we get into that, let me talk about. You can also find me on my other show. My other show is Briefing with the Chief. That is also on Rumble and is a Cagery radio show as well. That is every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And last week I did a show on Judge Dugan. It was really good. I went over a criminal complaint, and that woman, she was the head of the Catholic Charities. This is a judge up in Wisconsin that's getting prosecuted for obstructing ICE. She was actually the head of the Catholic Charities before she got a law degree and went into law. So this isn't just about right and wrong with her. She's an ideologue. Catholic Charities are really big on resettling migrants. They believe in open borders, and they have a legal fund to defend migrants as well. So I think there's a lot more to that story. I encourage you to go back and watch the show. And you can find that show, Briefing with the Chief, at kjdb.com, Briefing with the Chief, and you'll get all the audio versions of my show. And you can go to kjdb.com, Briefing with the Chief, on the Rumble channel. You can find the podcast version of that show there as well. And tomorrow I'm going to do a show on qualified immunity. I have a lawyer coming on, and we're going to talk about the legal aspects, but more importantly, we're going to talk about the public policy aspects of qualified immunity. That's the immunity that officers get, and actually people the executive branch get for doing their job. And good morning, Tom Baker. Thanks for joining our show here. And it's a really important protection for. Yeah, Burt was underrated. I enjoyed this movie. We'll get into it, but this was directed by him, and it was a good movie. I as we'll get into, I really liked a lot of the character actors in this movie. It was great. But you can also find me on X at LAC Jordan. Now, one of the things I started doing on X and is I participate in these groups called Spaces. And it's nice because I use my name and they see my title. If there's something relevant that they want to talk about law enforcement on, they pop me up there and I talk. But basically, they'll have maybe 500, 1,000 people on these spaces at times. And the three that I participate are spaces that are run by Stealth Medical, or Medical Stealth, I think is her name. The Punch Bowl, which is usually in the morning. And then Walter Kurt, a political theater, has started a space, and I'll jump on there. He's been on my show a couple of times. So if you want to hear me on X, you can watch those shows, and every now and then I drop in and I give some commentary on what is going on. And I've been very busy the last few days with the riots here in Los Angeles. And I'll call them riots because, if you look up the definition of riot, they fit that definition, even though the governor and the mayor say that it's not. It's just demonstrations, just a few violent people, but everybody else is peaceful. But if you look up the definition, it definitely fits the definition of a riot. Now, also, I got some meetings coming up for the LA mission, so I'm going to get an update on what's going on with them. And I would like to encourage you to go to the losangelesmission.org and make a donation today. A lot of the misguided policies of our government are being discredited these days, and they really did a disservice to the homeless population. But some of the nonprofits who get no money from government and who have a long history. So we're not talking about these nonprofits that have been created the last few years to advocate for leftist craziness. We're talking about nonprofits who've been established for, 85, 90 years, like the Los Angeles Mission, and have been doing a good time for a long time. Please go to losangelesmission.org and make a donation today. Do a fantastic job. Let's see. So we got Joe's. Let's see. Drive by like this and share. Wish my old military police ass was with you today instead of at work. Well, be safe at work. Burt and Sharky's Machine is one of the best. Hail to the chief. Thank you so much, Joe. Hey, I always remember watching this show and I really enjoyed it. But before we get into the movie, let me bring on my guests. I got a couple of retired law enforcement with me today, and we'll go by rank. We'll honor the rank even as they're retired. We'll go to retired Lieutenant John Baylis. He's been on multiple times before, but he's been out of action because he's a newlywed. He's been unable to get up in the morning this early because he's been exhausted, is what he's telling me. I won't ask him what he's doing, but that's what he says to me. Yeah. Yes, retired Lieutenant John Baylis.
What are you gonna do?
Hey, can you count all your wives on one hand, or you got to go to the other hand now?
Oh, that is just wrong. My wife will kill you. Oh my God.
Well, I can't wait to get out there to see her because you guys look like you're having a great time out there.
Yeah, come on out anytime.
And most of
places we can take you, everything.
Okay. Well, tell her that this is harmless fun between former comrades, and it reflects nothing on her. She's beautiful, and I'm sure
she knows.
She knows. And I spent all this. I was at the nurse's office yesterday, having a good time with her. All above board, G-rated, as you know. And but I said, hey man, I'm retired. I don't have to be the executive. I can just be relaxed and have a good time. When we closed the executive doors, most of the people who I worked with knew that, okay, he can have a sense of humor at times. But I have to tell you, as I went through my career, I went to Bill McSweeney's, I went to the services for retired chief, and
great man,
and talked to a couple of guys that, I was always had to be serious with them, but they were very, it was fun because I got to, I don't want to say let my hair down because that really doesn't work for me, but I got to I got to just have a good time, right? And I had a really good time at his services, and they did the whole 9 yards, the horses, the helicopters, everything. It was really a good way to send him off. Honorable guy, good guy. But let's bring in our second guest, retired Sergeant. Now, these guys shared an office together for a couple of years. Retired Sergeant Scott Orr, he's been on the show a few times. And I was happy to reunite these guys on my show because it's always pretty good banter between the two. Hey, Scott, how you doing?
Great, Pat. Glad to be here. Hey, John.
Good to see you what's again. Up?
Not much.
Oh, man. The most fond memory I just have with working with these two guys.
I've only been married once.
Well, yeah, that was the one, right?
Yeah. One time.
I think the fondest memory I had with you guys, worked with you guys, was going to Gillette the Thai place, and who could eat the hottest thing out of you guys, and you're both sweating like, and I couldn't stand that stuff, but you guys loved it, and I had to find the tamest thing on the menu every time, and just watching you guys, and that you guys, the thing you had in common the most that bonded you, I think, was food, but I could be wrong.
Gillette was the best. Ugh.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that the other day. I miss that place.
Me too.
Don't ever order it the way they eat it, because.
Okay, wait a minute. We might have some people from LA on the show. So, all right, explain. Let's do a plug for Gelato Ties. Is she still there? Can you tell them where it's at?
Off of, I believe, Hollywood Boulevard on the
it's over in the
east side.
Yeah.
And Jitlada, Jitlada. It's been on Food Network at least 4 times when we were working, and they love the food there. And it's all fresh. It's southern more than northern, but southern Thai, and it's a family-owned business.
And they're all family.
The food was phenomenal.
Whenever I went there, the owner was like, oh, you brought the big boss. She was always very deferential. you know,
Yeah, very nice
very,
lady.
very
Yeah.
nice lady. So
And
good
her
food.
brother helped. You know, it was great.
Spell that name again.
Jitlada, Jitlada.
In Hollywood, right? It's
Yep,
east, kind of
Hollywood,
east
off
of.
of Hollywood Boulevard, I believe.
All right. Well, if you're in LA or you're visiting LA, I suggest you do that. It's got a small parking lot, so get there early for lunch and enjoy. If you love Thai food like these guys do, that's where to get it. Okay, so today we're gonna
real quick.
Yeah.
It's, I got the address. Where'd it go? Ah, shit.
He's flipping through his notebook because he
No,
can't use the phone.
Oh, it's temporarily closed. Oh no.
Technical.
Oh, that's Vancouver. That's Vancouver.
Vancouver. That's a little
Yeah,
ways
it's in
away
Thai
from
Town
LA.
in LA on 52 and 33 and a half West Sunset.
There we go. 5233 and
Yeah,
a
I think
half
it's between
West
like
Sunset.
either Normandy and Vermont or something like that.
Yeah, it's right over there.
Sunset.
Yeah, it's a great place. Some of the best, freshest ingredients too.
I love the people that go in there and get mad because the food's taking too long, and there's signs everywhere that says each thing is prepared separately. There's nothing pre-made.
Declared fresh, yeah. Well, remember we used to go with Rick Crago, and that dude. I mean, I like spicy, but I can only handle like a 3 or a 4 on a scale of 10. He's got a 10, and then he asks for more spice. They bring him that ladle out with 10 different things in it, and he's just down to that. So I'm like, ooh, you smell it. My nose is burning.
Yeah, that guy was always skinny. I always felt maybe that stuff burned off fat. I don't know.
Probably.
You know,
No, he loves the spice. Oh.
Yeah. I couldn't eat that stuff, guys. That's, on top of my head was sweat, and
Yep.
it would be an ugly picture for me if I ate that stuff.
Yeah, I'll do a 3. That's about it.
All right, that's enough plugging for the Thai food. Yeah, pooped in too. Yeah, I popped into. Is that what you popped into? Okay. Well, all right. So we're going to do the movie Sharky's Machine. It was released in 1981. It's a neo-noir action thriller directed by Burt Reynolds. It's a film adaptation of a book by William Deal under the same name. Now, I really liked this movie. I saw it years ago and I enjoyed it. But at the time, I really liked Burt Reynolds. I think I kind of cooled on him as an actor because I think his shtick got kind of stale. But I remember him in what's the one you said, Gator, John? It was Malone. Well, he also did one Gator, right, where he was kind of and so a lot of it was kind of the same. And I remember him in Deliverance. That was probably
great
the best role that I saw him in. That was a fantastic role. And but he was in the first was it 9 Yards or something like the first? What's the movie with the football one?
Longest Yard.
Longest Yard.
Yeah, he was
that
in
was
that
the
one
original.
too.
Much better than Adam Sandler's.
I thought he was great. Smokey and the Bandit.
Huh?
Well, I thought Smokey and the Bandit stuff was entertaining, but kind of got old, right?
The best was Jackie Gleason trying to be another sheriff and talking.
Yes.
You're not used to Jackie Gleason doing that. He was hilarious.
So Burt Reynolds went to college with my oldest brother. Now Burt Reynolds
Florida State.
He played in Florida State, right? He was he quarterback? I can't remember what his position was.
I don't remember.
I don't.
Maybe help. He did some quality small movers. Yeah, Heat was good, and there was one.
I didn't like Heat, and I love Clint Eastwood. It's just the dialogue wasn't as good as it could have been.
I liked about that movie is I just like those period pieces where you get in the suits and the hats and the old cars. It's
like the Hat Squad and those.
Yeah, the Hat Squad. We've done several with Buzz where we did whatever L.A. Confidential, the movie, and
that's
nice. But I think the best thing about this movie though was the character actors. They were great in this, and well, let's get into. Let's show our first. We'll do our first scene, and then we'll talk a little bit about Burt because. So let's roll it, and we see him, and he's playing an undercover cop. This is a movie where he's in the narcotics squad, and he's doing obviously an investigation, and he works for the Atlanta Police Department as a detective or narcotics detective. And of course, I had some real problems with how he's doing this. I'm sure you guys can guess my problem on this thing, right?
Oh yeah.
So he doesn't appear to have close backup, and he takes the money to the exchange, which drives me crazy. So because there was a LAPD guy that Blackie Sawyer, I can't remember his name. That was, narcotics guys were killed early on because they did that, and they changed how they did things, where they never brought the money to the negotiation because the getting ripped off was a very real possibility, and so this kind of bugged me that he did it this way, right? But they also the character actor in this,
Harry Rhodes.
Yeah, I remember him, and I liked him, and he kind of played a good crazy guy as he tries to get away here. And I think they called him, is that the junk man? And my wife was watching the show with me, and she doesn't know anything about it. She goes, why do they call him a junk man? I go, well, because heroin is sometimes referred to as junk on the streets. So
yeah, Harry Rhodes played in Daktari, the TV show. If you remember that, and the movie. But he's been around a long time.
Yeah.
This is a small part for him.
Right. Well, but it's a good opening thing though, right? With him. But yeah, you agree, right, Scott? Hey, you don't take the money to the it gets handled a lot differently these days. This wouldn't. I know some of this.
You don't take the money, and then the guys that are backing you up don't pull up in a car and go, "Hey, you okay? You make the deal yet?" I mean,
yeah. But then it turns out we know why later. But yeah, it was. Yeah. And look at when they go in the chase, and he gets on the bus.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my God, give me a break. We just don't do it that way,
Let's see. He was regretting getting Reynolds into acting because he had hoped he would be a proper Shakespearean actor. So I can't imagine Burt Reynolds being a Shakespearean actor.
Not at all.
I just can't see him. I
holding a skull up.
Yeah.
I think Denzel Washington did some of that classical stuff. I could see him even, doing it better than Burt Reynolds.
Oh, Denzel Washington do anything.
Yeah,
he's great.
More versatile of an actor, I think.
Yeah.
So.
No, Burt Reynolds is Deliverance. You know, the tough guy, bow and arrow, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
And like you said, the longest yard when he hits Ray Nitschke in the ball with the football. Yeah, that's Burt Reynolds.
Yeah, and then he married. Who did he marry? The blonde. God, I'm losing it now.
Lonnie Anderson.
Lonnie Anderson, yeah. And that ended badly. And then he was in the one regarding that was kind of a loose thing of John Holmes. It was Boogie Nights.
Yeah, with Marky Mark.
With Marky Mark. So, and I thought that was a good kind of revival of his career. And but he's one of those guys that burned through his money too and was struggling.
Well, he had a lot of health issues later in life too.
Yeah.
Everybody thought he had AIDS because he dropped down and lost a lot of weight, but he had something wrong with his jaw and his bite. They had to break his jaw to fix everything. It just messed him up.
Yeah, I always wonder if that's playing football or something like that. I did see a Tennessee Williams play at the Burt Reynolds Dinner Theater. Was he playing? He wasn't playing it, right? Serious roles, taking artsy serious roles himself, but he did patronize the arts. Yeah, I'm sure they all did. That's their trade, right? That's their trade.
Absolutely.
So, over here, we only have Jean-Claude Van Damme. Well, okay, I don't think the two are the same. I like Burt. Burt is.
Burt was a man's man.
Yeah, he was.
Didn't he do a pantyhose commercial?
Oh yeah,
I think he did. Yes,
pantyhose commercials. And he was in Playgirl magazine or something.
Copied
like that.
Joe Namath.
Yeah. Here's our guy Smiley shows up as we find out he's a bad guy later. And that guy is Smiley. He was actually a child actor.
Yep.
Way back when. I looked back at his acting chops. He went way back as a child actor. And then, I think this was one of his last major roles, I think, as Smiley here. And he plays the buffoon, but in reality, he was probably disrupting this operation because he's corrupt. And this is why you never bring the money. You know, it can go ugly quickly. If the money's not there, then it's harder to go ugly. So, Bert's he's gonna get in a chase scene with this guy, and he's gonna end up chasing him onto a bus and get in a shooting. And here's the thing. I mean, I thought this was all, other than it fell apart, because you want those undercover operations to be fairly well contained. You want to have your contingencies handled. They didn't. But it wasn't really his fault that it went off the rails. It was this other guy's fault. And this guy gets away. Pretty good runner for an old guy. And, you know, I don't know. I thought it was a fairly clean shooting. It was the tactics the bad tactics of the undercover operation that allowed it to happen, I would say.
And getting on the bus and not stopping the bus with your badge. No. You know, we were taught, you know, how to get in the back and you just hit the one button and it turns it off. But we would have ended up, you know, containing it and calling SWAT in.
Yeah.
You know, but it's all for TV. You know, they got to have the shootout.
Well, and then it was, didn't it like fire one round and this thing blow up too? That I go, okay, I think they fired one round at a car or something like that, and it blew up. And I'm going, okay, well that ain't gonna happen. So
no.
But so, and these guys are all coming out of the woodwork to help, and of course Bert's got to save the day. I want a SWAT team lieutenant. You know, okay, they're not going to get there for an hour. Not going to get there for an hour, but
they got to do their hair and they got to be all proper and not going to get there anytime soon.
You
better bring a lunch or order lunch for them to get there.
You know, it's, you know, they assume that they're all sitting in the car ready to go. It's kind of, you know,
exactly.
You know, they're all either working out. Somebody called me. They wanted to talk about the North Hollywood police shooting. A friend of mine that I grew up with that was a cop back east, and he said, "I just saw that. Did they learn any lessons?" And he was asking me about the SWAT guys. I go, you know, those SWAT guys happened to be training in the San Fernando Valley, if I remember correctly. There was a training facility in Granada Hills, and the shooting was in North Hollywood. And you saw them. They were in like their running gear, their workout gear, and they just threw on their tactical stuff, grabbed their MP5s and whatnot, and sprinted down there, and they were able to get there and have an impact. But that was just fortuitous. That was, you know, that was just you know, luck, I guess, that they were close enough and that the situation lasted long enough that they could engage and take one of the suspects down. So, but that's unusual. So
yeah, unlike at the couple of days ago in LA at the riots. 2 hours. Now it's 38 minutes it took them to get there, but because of traffic and suiting up and tear gas that the feds threw.
Yeah, you know, and he said that, but you know, one of the things he clarified, had we been able to work with them, this would have been different. And he was really careful not to lay them out, because he said, well, how do you say it? And we're talking about the press conference of Chief McDonald and their initial response. He said, you know, we're precluded from working with the federal partners on ICE stuff, and they respected the fact that we're precluded and didn't call us. So he didn't lay them out, like saying, you should have called us. You know, he didn't lay them out. He's being very, I've been watching him. He's very tactful. He's dancing around.
Well, he has to, because he says, we're not going to enforce. We're not going to assist. We're not going to, you know.
That's fine, but he's not, he didn't say, well, they could have called us and told us, right? He could have laid them out there and just left, knowing full well that these laws, they wouldn't have been able to work with them anyways, right? And that's what I explained. It says we're in the situation we're in because the state passed a law called the Values Act that doesn't let, you know, the locals work with ICE at all. You can't spend any money supporting ICE. That's what it says. One of the little sections in that law says that. So that means sending staff to work with ICE to have a tactical team ready to go if it gets ugly is a violation of state law. And of course, the news people, and somebody says, you're kidding me. I go, no, read it yourself. I've read it, you know, I've dealt with it. And, you know, I said, surprisingly, it was going to go even farther than as written that it is. But Jim McDonald was the sheriff at the time, and he was the only one who stood up and says, no, we need to be able to get violent felons out of here. And I said, for all the guys that are cheering on Villanueva, I said he was the guy who shut down all working with ICE. So I know he's now a Republican. Welcome to the club. But, I just, I was never a huge fan of Jim McDonald's, but I do think that he's trying not to be a shill for the left. So, but here, so our scene is over with. It gets blown, and what happens is Sharky ends up shooting the bad guy, but during the shootout, I think a civilian gets injured, and instead of putting the guy on the bench for a month, they sent him to Vice, like that. So I don't know. First of all, I didn't think his actions were necessarily bad. I think they were instinctively right. I didn't like the tactics, but it is the movies. Exactly. And it wasn't really him who blew the operation, although he's kind of in charge. That's what he said. They call it Sharky's Machine when he was at Narcotics. So he's kind of in charge. If it goes bad, I guess he takes the hit. But yeah, they would just suspend you for a while. They wouldn't like send you to Vice like that. In fact, they'd probably you got a desk job for a year. This is probably what would happen to him, right? Not what they did. And then
where you get transferred.
Yeah, he would get well, yeah, and you're just going down the steps to the basement in this movie, which is funny. People go down there and never come back. And that, is like Vice. I never did. You guys have that opinion of Vice as being a place for dredges? That I never got that opinion. Either for LAPD Vice or our Vice. I mean, people didn't like doing
heads in it. But
they didn't like maybe the crimes, the Vice stuff that they were doing. I mean, the Vice type crimes that they worked on. Maybe people,
but a bunch of search.
Yeah, those guys all seemed to have a good time. They seemed to be pretty good when you had to do complicated investigations for, pimping and pandering or stuff like that. They seemed the motion device just didn't seem like. Yeah, it's a common movie cliche. Yeah, but in reality. Narcotics device, I don't know, kind of the same thing. They're both the same thing. Drugs is a vice and sex is a vice, right? It's kind of the same drama. Do you agree, Scott?
Well, they put together, we worked with them once when I was in the gang unit, when I was, gang detective, because they were doing this we didn't know anything. They just said they wanted our help because they were doing, and they had Narco, us, and they're doing it. It turns out they're hitting all these VFWs, all these Elks lodges. American Legion clubhouses, all this, going after those little punch ticket.
Gambling things.
Gambling type things. And of course, you're given this briefing and it's the day of, and they're telling what they're going after, and it's like you're talking to a room that's probably 70% vets and probably belong to one of those organizations. So we went in there and we're like, hey, do you guys have any as we're taking stuff down, you guys have any gambling stuff in here? Oh no, we don't do that. Okay, see you later. On to the next one.
So I can understand that, where you're not really motivated on the crimes they're investigating. I guess I can see that. And working with prostitutes can be a little dirty at this point, but so is working with drug dealers.
True.
And,
true.
I mean, but what would you rather take down?
We used to have a lot of prostitutes as informants.
Yeah.
Imagine being sent to Beverly Hills and waiting in a bathroom stall for George, the singer,
George Michael
to approach you. I mean, no thanks. Nah. Yeah, it's not my game, man. No.
Yeah, that I can understand that, but I didn't. Did you ever see? I didn't see him as being.
No, I never did. They were all a bunch of nice guys. I liked them, but no, in fact, they were kicked out of West Hollywood because the city council of West Hollywood. We don't want Vice in here. They're just guys trying to get a date.
They're just. All right, just clarify for our national audience who doesn't know, West Hollywood had a large gay population, and it was also a cruising place for everybody in the Southern California and visitors coming to Southern California to make the love connection. That's you can find anything you want and do anything you want
In West Hollywood.
In West Hollywood, yes. That should be a saying for those guys.
I came from a small town in Washington State. My first year, I'm at the jails after the academy. They send a bunch of us, brand new deputies, to West Hollywood for the Gay Pride Parade.
Which is going on this month? It's this week.
We're standing in this huge auditorium, and the captain, who I think was Helena Ashby at the time.
Yeah, I worked for her.
Yeah. Says, if anybody's heard uttering these derogatory remarks, you will receive a 3-day suspension without pay. And she reads off this list, probably 50 different, terms like pillow. And I'm looking at the guy next to me, and I'm like, she's just giving us ammo. I hadn't heard any of these type of things where I grew up. I'm like, well, that's a new one. I'm going to put that here. I started writing it down.
You could be offended now just for her doing that briefing. Yeah, it was. I was working for somebody there, and they talked about, they wanted to make sure that they wanted to try and bring in the first transgender secretary to work at the station. I was a lieutenant, and you need to make sure that the deputies accept this and this and that and all this other stuff. And I remember looking at her, and I won't say names. I said, deputy sheriffs they're paramilitary. They'll march. You give them an order, they'll march. But they can find a nice clean place, including the fire station, to go to the bathroom and do what they have to do. But those secretaries back there, I bet you they're not going to be happy about this, having to go to the bathroom with a biological male. So I said, why don't you just don't push this, just let it happen organically. If the person passes the test and can do all the stuff, we'll see. And the person didn't pass the test, so because she was advocating for her.
They pushed it a lot.
Just let it flow, and don't push it, right? Don't push it, because the way society's attitudes have to change over time. It's a slow process, right? But to get back to the movie, though, I never thought Vice was less than or anything like that.
No. And neither did I, but you sure didn't want to do that stuff.
Let's roll with the scene called Vice, and this will give us a chance to talk about Charles Durney. And now you see him in a lot of movies, and you don't always recognize who he is. He plays the lieutenant here, and they always have this angry lieutenant or angry captain. There he is. He looks like he lost weight, actually, right? He was a little heavier in the 70s, I think.
Oh yeah, he got bigger.
And he plays the angry lieutenant, like, "Oh my God, what are you doing to me, Sharky?" kind of thing. And he seems like he's not in control, right? So he's the guy working Vice. He's the guy who's in charge of the collection of these characters, and they are characters. That's what I really like. Like I said, I think all the different characters of Vice made this movie. It was fun because it was kind of a fun team. And Sharky's got a reputation, and he's the new guy to the unit, so he gets the crummiest desk, which is not unusual, I imagine. So. But he's down there. So Charles Durney, he's a longtime character actor, right, John?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He's been around a long time. In fact, his last role, to tell you the truth, before he passed away, was on NCIS, the TV show. And he played a Medal of Honor winner. And he had the Medal of Honor thing on his chest. And he was confused about when he was in the war, how he thought he killed his partner, but he didn't. And
Alpha says he was a veteran of the Battle of the Bulge.
Yes, he was. Charles Durning earned 3 Bronze Stars. He went through Africa, Italy, and then Germany in the Battle of the Bulge. 3 Bronze Stars. That's a brave dude right there.
Yeah, you never, I know I've talked about this before, but a lot of these old time actors, they actually, most of them went to fight for their country. Like Lee Marvin, I'm trying to think of Henry Fonda. I mean,
Charles Bronson,
Jimmy Stewart, and
Clark Gable.
Yeah, and Clark was older. He was in his 40s, I think, and he went. And so a lot of these guys went to fight, and then they got into acting, which who knew, right? And But he was in the Choir Boys as Sperm Whale. He was one of the prime characters in there, and I've seen this. I think he was. God, was he in Death Wish? No, that was a different guy. That was the other character actor that played that New York.
Oh, I made a mistake. That was Brian Keith. Durning won a Silver Star and a Bronze Star.
Okay.
And he's buried at Arlington Cemetery.
Is he really?
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. But this is kind of a typical angry lieutenant kind of scene that you see in the movies. I lived it.
One who wants to cover his butt, doesn't want to get any hassles, doesn't want to be bothered by.
I'm 2 years away from my pension. Yes, it is kind of a typical refrain for a lot of cop movies, right, Scott?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I can honestly say I've never heard anybody really utter that, like, "Oh my God, I can't do this or that because I only got 2 years left of my." Okay, so they put you on. Okay, so you just go out injured. They start really messing with you.
I rolled to something I think you were at, Scott, and deputies had rolled in and they'd been taking rocks and bottles. There had been a shooting there, I guess. It was a house party, and a bunch of deputies went in. And I won't say you went in, but a bunch of deputies went in and took over the place and got everybody on the floor, and they're taking people to jail. And
the way it should be.
It wasn't my area, right? And I roll up to back up. I was north. I think it was north Carson, and my peer was down there with the penal code trying to figure out how you guys legally did what you did, and said, oh my God, how can we do this legally? I said, well, it's already done. Why don't we just go start at this point, right? And then we calmed it. I think we ended arresting like 25 people that night. I said, well, we're gonna take people to jail. They did this, they did that, exigent circumstance, It was actually, I rolled up, can you do something about him, Sarge? He doesn't understand. So there are people on, we know there are people, hey, just the whole pursuit policy, right? Our pursuit policy rewarded
not doing anything,
not taking a risk, right?
Exactly.
You can cancel a pursuit, and there'll be no questions. In fact, I let one go for 2 hours in Compton, and it was at the end of a double shift. I read my memo the next day in my pursuit. I'm like, oh God, I can tell I was really tired because this memo sucks. But and they discussed it. It was a Wednesday. They discussed it at EPC. They discussed the pursuit that I go for 2 hours at EPC. So think about the chilling impact that has on a lieutenant. I would tell you, I got an offer to leave and I left because I go, well, you know what? I'm not going to stay here and, do what I think is right just to be second guessed by a bunch of people who spent their career avoiding doing, taking risks and doing what was right. And so,
isn't it amazing how when you get into something that all of a sudden that these opportunities come knocking. If they wanted you to, hey, we think you do a great job over here.
Yeah. I got out of there, and I was just as I was getting ready to transfer, a new captain came in and tried to beg me to stay because I had a solid reputation in that region. People knew I knew what I was doing, but I wasn't going to stay to be second guessed. I let it go for 2 hours. It was the right thing to do. And my captain, he didn't have any problem backing me. It was the people higher than him, right? And so I escaped, right? I got out of there, and because I thought, well, I'm not going to let pursuits go and do this and do that, and put my career at risk because somebody has a very narrow focus. Because it's me putting I'm making the decision. As long as it's within policy, I'm okay, right? But anyway, so our policy actually rewards people for being skittish about doing police work. And so True. I see that a little bit in this character. And here's Brian Keith, right? Here's our other Brian Keith, another great actor, right?
Yep. Remember he did Family Affair. But that was one of his later things. He played, did you ever see Mountain Men with Charlton Heston and him?
Yes. That
was a great flick. If you haven't seen that.
Well, he was, because he was, as far as this staff goes, he was older than a lot of the other staff
Yep.
members, right? And
he's another World War II vet, a
Right.
Marine,
Didn't they call him
and
Pop?
he's the
Didn't they
one who
call him
had 3
Papa?
stars.
yeah, they called him Papa, right? You know.
Yep.
And I like his character. He was a fun character. I mean, he's getting all over Arch here, the other guy. Let's see, Bernie Casey, because all he eats is, you know, and that does happen. You got the cop who's into the, oh, I only eat healthy, I only eat this, I only eat that, and he's like, why? You don't like anything good. You don't like ribs, you don't like burgers, you don't like a steak. What's wrong with you, right? And that is a typical. If you have like a vegetarian with a regular cop who eats it, they're going to be all over each other for that. I don't want to go eat there. You know what I mean? And so I just
fun of you forever.
Yeah, I enjoyed the interplay between the two characters, and I like Brian Keith. You know, he played a great.
He was great. Loved him.
And I forget what I was watching. I was watching something about this, and when they decided to make the movie, Burt Reynolds obviously directed, and they only had one character in mind for sure, and it was Brian Keith's character as Papa. Says I knew that I had to get him for this role, and once he said yes, then yeah, I was going to do the movie. and I, as a, you know, I mean, normally he's a leading guy, but he did a great job as a character actor. It was fun. You know, obviously he gets killed in the end, but like I said, I think it was the character actors who kind of made the movie because they made it fun. Scott, you worked in a small unit, right?
Oh yeah.
The banter back and forth is to be expected.
Oh, that's what I miss. That's what I miss the most about not being, you know, in a group with, you know,
the
banter that goes back and forth, and, you know, and then, but if people who weren't cops and maybe are cops but don't work in that type of, you know, environment, they would not get the banter.
No,
because there's nothing is off limits. Kids, wives, race, it doesn't matter. If you don't have elephant skin, you're going to be offended. And if you know, in a tight group, like the Marine Corps is the same way. I mean, and if you watch, like we talked about them being Battle of the Bulge, I probably binge watched the Band of Brothers for like the 8th time. And it's the same type. They make fun of your last name, like mine's easy to make fun of, you know, or the whore. I mean, that's not hard. I mean, that's so that banter, and like with food.
Or the whore.
Well, because I worked a lot of overtime, so
yeah,
overtime more
too. So you know, and you know what's funny is one of your spectators had a question down there. He's like, the only young actor he can think of that was in the military was Adam Driver. And he's right to a point. Adam Driver was a Marine, but also Rob Riggle. I don't know if you guys know who he is. He's a comedy actor, and he's a good actor.
He was in
Marine.
Desert Storm or whatever.
Yep. Another former Marine.
So,
well, there was the whole attitude after Vietnam of, you know, military bad. The same thing, cops bad, you know, and so they lost their place of honor to some degree, and so I don't think we had we don't see these. Plus, you know, it's a different time. I mean, God, when I grew up, I was just, I had 5 siblings, and my current wife had 7 siblings. My ex-wife had 5 siblings, so big families, you know. And, you know, it isn't, if I only had 2 kids, you tend to give them a lot of opportunities. And I know for me, the military was plan B if moving to California when I was 19 didn't work out. Let's see, growing up in 1970, I mainly knew Earl Hoffman from Policewoman. Yeah, Earl's in the movie, right? And it was odd seeing him as a politician here. Yeah, another good character actor, because I remember seeing him in movies too. But if it's a different thing, right? Our guys, a lot of people don't see the military as a viable option moving forward. I saw it, but I managed to pull my life together before military had to be an option. And it wasn't that I was messed up. It's just I didn't have any money, so I had a choice. Right. Either I grounded out here and bullshit jobs until I got a better job, or I went in the military. And had I struggled any worse, I'd have been a veteran. I don't know what I would have joined, but it would, as long as I had benefits and money, that would have gotten me through. I know that was kind of your story too, Scott, but that's not the story of the kids we raised. They didn't have to go, right? They had options.
No, my son did it because of 9/11.
Yeah.
Well, plus my dad was a Marine. I was a Marine. I like 3 uncles who were Marines, and so that was kind of the family thing. But he joined because of 9/11, and then by the time he was able to join, it was basically over. But he still got to go to Somalia and Djibouti, garden spots on the planet.
Yeah, garden spots.
Good vacation places, huh?
Yeah.
Well, the other thing too is it's I really get the you get whipshot back and forth. Now in the latest politics, the Democrats are going, oh my God, Trump is cutting benefits for the veterans, and I go,
bullshit.
These guys don't care about the veterans, and I said that on Twitter and I got attacked. They don't care. They never did.
No.
And it's just like, and it's funny because I was watching some of the hearings, and the Capitol Police are just ripping those Democratic protesters out of there, are these leftists. Ben Jerry, Ben Cohen of Ben and Jerry's was in there, and they yanked him out, and he almost fell down. I go, ooh, I wonder how long they're going to continue. The Democrats are going to deify the Capitol Police when they keep doing this, right? Pretty soon they're going to be oppressors too, just like the rest of us cops, right?
Oh, so well, look, whenever they want to bash, not just Trump, but whenever they want to bash another politician, it's always, every time, if you want to pass a law, it's for the children's safety. Let's bring the kids into it so we can pass this law that has nothing to do with kids. But support the firefighters. You got to pass this law. Wait, it's a tax. Or they use the vets. Oh, they're coming after the veterans' benefits. Or they go after the elderly. They're coming for your Social Security. They're coming. It's like, and then it never happens.
It's fake empathy or fear. So Sidney Sheldon gave Burt Reynolds the novel. Hey, thank you, Gambit, on this movie, and he turned it into a movie. Yeah, I think Burt Reynolds did a pretty good job directing this. I think there's some things I didn't like in the movie. I didn't like some of the timeline or some of the. First of all, okay, we got to talk about this. We'll show the killer and the politician, and we'll talk a little bit about this. Roll that scene. I also think the killer was a fantastic character actor in this too. Billy Score is the name of the character. Silver. Yeah, he was fantastic. He played a really.
He always plays the
fun bad guy, right?
Guy.
Yep.
And he's going in to tie up loose ends for his brother Victor here, who is the kingpin. And so you see him here doing a murder, and he kills a guy and the prostitute. So, and that guy, the guy he killed was a pretty good character. I recognize him, and I can't think of who he is now. The guy who gets murdered in St. John, and then this clip rolls into introducing us to our politician that's running for. What do we say, Harvey? What's our politician's name here? I'm looking for his name on my list of character actors here.
Earl Holliman.
Yeah, Holliman. So Earl Holliman. Yeah. So it introduced both of them. Now I lost my train of thought on what I want to talk about. So let's talk about him. He's a longtime actor too, and he's little. This was one of towards the end of his career though. This guy here, our politician. I used to live and work in Capitol Hill, about a block from the Senate office building. Used to interact with police fairly often. They had a tough gig that day. I think they got set up on J6. I think, I had told people I had gotten. You guys don't know this, but I was asked to go talk to the National Capital Region, just a small forum with everybody that was responsible for some element of protecting the Capitol. And I had put together a committee to keep freight rail safe in Los Angeles. It was seen as a model for how to communicate and talk and coordinate. And so they fly me out to DC, and I end up in this room with, I got Maryland folks, I got Virginia folks, and then I got DC folks, and I got the Capitol Police, I got the Park Police. They got a whole collection of jurisdictions. And we were talking, and they told me how they all come together to deal with demonstrations. So it's like, this isn't something that, when I saw J6, it was not something that, it should have been something that should have been easily handled. And they didn't do everything that they would normally do. They would normally have riot gear on. They would normally have barricades. They'd have, if necessary, the National Guard out there. They'd have their partners ready to go, and that didn't exist. And they never investigated to find out why. I mean, some stuff is leaking out. They didn't want the optics, whatever. But why do they do those? But they do it all the time. What do you mean you don't like the optics? It made no sense to me. Anyways, I got off on a tangent here, but here's they're taking Burt out. So this is also typical, right? You got the new guy in Vice, right? All right, you got to go make the pitch, right?
Yeah, give him the shit job.
It could be either, here one, it's kind of tame, but right, John, you talk about going into the bathrooms and enticing somebody to make a pitch to you is, most guys don't want to do that, but that's what happens, because you're working men and you're working women. It's a different kind of dynamic with the men, right? And guys don't want to do that, but that's part of the job. And he's the newbie, right? And they just both look at him, and I can see this is typical. New meat, you're it. She doesn't know who you are, and he has to go make this is Mabel, right? This is the character Mabel that's in this scene. And Carol Locatel, I think that's it, Locatel, and she was a longtime actor as well. But so this was typical, right, Scott? So you're the new meat, you're the one who's doing the buy, or you're the one that's doing the exchange, or you're the one that's meeting with the prostitute, right?
Oh yeah. You get the bottom of the barrel crap when you first come into anything. I remember being on patrol at Carson, and you called in to look at the in-service, and you got some ride along, and I'd go into one of my favorite sergeants, Chester, and I'd say, "I'm not taking him."
Chester.
Oh, you're on the in-service. You're taking him. And I said, "I'm not taking him." I go, I give it to one of the boots. They're brand new. Put them with them. Well, I don't want something to happen to them. Well, don't give them to me, because I'm not babysitting. So give it to one of them. And then I go, "I'm not taking them." And he'd be yelling at me as I walked out. You're taking them. No, I'm not.
Yeah, ride along could be a lot of work sometimes, because you got to keep them safe. But they're to a lot. If you don't have a busy night, you're stuck entertaining them all night.
And some of them
they're asking, like, why is this so slow? Well, because it's January and it's pouring down rain. I'm sorry, there's not a lot of people out shooting each other and everything.
Yeah. I hated ride-alongs.
I met a couple nice ladies who came for ride-alongs when I was single. So,
well, there's nice people too that do go on those, but I'd get stuck with. I had one guy, and I was doing a car search for narco, and I got a gun. I told the guy, "Stay in the car, and I'll the guy's already secured, the suspect." Next thing I know, I look, he's in the back seat going through the guy's files. I'm like, "Get here." And I drove immediately backstage and said, "Get the hell out. You're done."
Oh, every time I had one was always, "What are you stopping them for? Do you see that there's one tail light? There should be two." What do you think I'm stopping them for?
Yeah, I had a DA, assistant DA, that was working with me, and I don't know, it was like 2, or he came for a ride along. It was like 2 a.m, and we could see a guy walking. He did, I called them wallflowers. The guys that are, that didn't make the love connection in the bar, they're now all walking to make the love connection, So I called them wallflowers. These are the wallflowers that didn't get a date in the bar, so they're still out looking, right? Is what I eventually tagged him as being. But he's walking towards us, and we're driving for him. And I'm just kind of watching him, and then he ducks down. That's what we call suspicious activity, right? And so I go and I detain him, right? And I go, what are you doing ducking down for? Because we had Autobergs in the area. We had a lot of stuff that was going on in the area. And of course, we had the Wallflowers out there trying to make the love connection after the bar closed. And so I detain him, and he goes, I'm not out. I go, what do you mean? He goes, I'm not out. I go, okay, I get it. Well, you know what? I work in West Hollywood. There are a lot of men making the love connection here. That doesn't bother me. Please do me a favor. Don't be ducking behind cars, because I don't care. That I'm just looking for burglars and dope dealers. I'm not looking for you. And so just be honest next time. Just don't do stupid things like this. And so we get back in the car and we're driving away, and the guy goes, I always thought you guys were lying about that stuff. The DA said that. I said, what do you mean? He goes, he just ducked to try to hide from us. I always thought that you guys were lying to us. I go, no. These guys, he has something to hide. He just didn't have something criminal to hide. But he's acting like a criminal because he's, he wants to hide whatever it is. And of course, I'm not going to take his name down. And of course, we didn't have internet then and put him on the internet or anything like that. It's just, I'm looking for crooks, man. I said, I did tell him, hey, it's late. Just go home, man. There'll be another night. So
yeah. Every other night on the alley off of Santa Monica.
Yeah. You'll make the love connection, just not tonight, dude. Try another night. So, but yeah, it was just the comment of the DA though. It was interesting. I always thought you guys were lying, and I the same thing with the toss. You guys if they toss some dope, that happens. And these DAs would pretend, or the public defenders would pretend like, no way. Yes, it happens. It happens.
So you come around a corner and the guy looks at you and goes, I don't have anything. I'm like, what?
I was at a prelim and it was a toss, and the public defender says, there's no way you could have saw that unless you're Superman. And I said, well, there's been rumors. I just looked at me like, what?
Well, I did my last show on Briefing with the Chief. I went through the criminal complaint of Judge Dugan. And one of the witnesses says, after she thinks she clears the whole hallway out of all the ICE guys and that's just the federal task force there to arrest that guy, right? And she gets the guy and his attorney, and she takes him to the private office. Then she looks at the public hallways, and she looks both ways. And I'm going, oh my God! I got to make sure the coast is clear. There's no coppers here, right? And somebody sees that, and they said that. I go, oh, she does it. She does exactly the thing that draws attention, right?
Exactly.
I go, okay. I can imagine her if she ever testified. Because they get on video, right? Okay, so look both ways. What were you looking for?
You're so right, Martine. You're so right.
Let's see. Well, nobody has ever seen Scott and Superman.
Oh, that's a good one.
Well, you know me, I could be very irreverent at times.
No.
Well, you do get tired of them attacking your credibility on the stand. Right?
Yeah, I'm like, what?
Hey, is it 9 o'clock yet?
It is 9 o'clock.
You gotta go, John.
Break. Martine, I think.
Talking about Superman?
He's got to go
more
jump
than 2
in his
minutes,
stone booth and change his cape. It is time for our break. Martine, are you queued up and ready to go?
There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all. Movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis. Official scoops from Geekosity magazine. Reviews and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield. Well, they're always talking nerdy nerd stuff. Right, jog on then. There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all. Movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis. Official scoops from Geekosity magazine. Reviews and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield. Well, they're always talking nerd stuff. Right, jog on then.
Hey, welcome back to Morning Coffee with the Chief. We're going over the movie Sharky's Machine, although we've been kind of having a little more fun than reviewing. So we'll have to get back into it. And so they, well, after they arrest Mabel and they take her in the booking cage, which of course I've never seen a booking cage like that where they're right in there and they could see. Have you seen
it's
that?
Always in a New York one.
A New York thing, and this is.
You're like, what?
It's Atlanta, our booking cage is all sealed off somewhere. You don't see all these people, right? And they got like a little cage there. I've never seen this before, but they see Mabel. She gets very afraid of somebody that comes in the room, and of course Sharky, who wants to work his way out of ice, sees an opportunity. They're like, who is that guy? Well, he's like the biggest pimp in the city or whatever, and he decides, okay, well, he's the biggest pimp. I'm going to take him down, right? And that's how this starts.
Well,
where
didn't
Sharky
say the guy's name, and then he turned and stared at her, and she was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm sorry."
She got scared to death.
Victor, she got very scared, and he saw that, and he goes, "Wow, if he's creating that kind of fear in her, he must be, And this, remember when Freeway Ricky Ross was running around in L.A. I think every dope cop wanted to be the guy that took him down, right? Because he was untouchable. He was dealing, hundreds of kilos of coke, and it was actually getting transported out of LA as well. And I could just remember there was anybody working dope wanted to take that guy down, right? And so here you are, got Sharky, who's kind of a case ace. He's a top investigator. That suddenly becomes his mark. He's the biggest. I got to take him down. And I think that's how this whole thing started. And he gets wiretaps. Yeah, what you don't really see is a whole lot of preamble on developing the probable cause for the wiretaps.
Exactly. You don't have any
you don't see it. This is
I want a wiretap.
The movie magic, right?
It's so easy to walk into a judge and go, "I need a wiretap." Okay, here, let me sign that for you.
Service lieutenant on this one. Wiretaps. What probable cause do you have? Let me read the probable cause. Oh, well, she said that he was the biggest guy, and she got afraid. That's there it is.
Yep. There it
is. It's kind of like the same probable cause they used against Trump when they investigated him. There's nothing there. So, but so they didn't.
He didn't ask for just one wiretap. Didn't he ask for like 6?
6? I know. Yeah.
And they could only get 5. They couldn't do the one in the house. And Burt goes, "I got a guy.
I got a guy. I think everybody had a guy.
What do you mean you got a guy? Oh my God. Oh geez. Oh, I'm going to retire."
Well, I would not have done any yelling if I was the DB lieutenant. I'd just been looking up over my glasses. Scott.
Well, first of all, if
what?
Let's be real. If you're going to do something scandalous like that, why do you announce it to your lieutenant?
You're going to go find that judge that likes you and get it signed off.
Exactly.
And keep the lieutenant out of it,
say,
right?
And then if it comes up, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is permission. Oh, sorry. Didn't we tell you about that one?
Well, let's roll with Sharky's obsession, because it does lead to them doing surveillance on Domino. And this is really, we did see Rachel Ward in the movie, but this really shows her. She's the high-priced call girl. And
$1,000 a night.
$1,000 a night, and this was way back in the 80s. So what would she be tonight? I guess with inflation, or now maybe 5,000. I don't know.
Yeah.
But and she's beautiful, and she was a model before she started this. John, you got her background? Did you do research on her?
Yeah,
not just pictures on this one,
but she lived
Yeah,
in
he's
Australia
got
for years.
pictures.
But she
About the
played
same
in,
age.
remember Against All Odds with
Yeah.
Jeff Bridges, and Alex Karras played the hitman in that, and James Wood was the pimp bad guy, and she's also was in the Thornbirds miniseries with Richard Chamberlain. But yeah, she's beautiful lady, been around a lot.
And this was kind of her first big role.
Her
first big role.
This is when she first started out. She was a model also. Right.
And what I call this scene Sharky's obsession, because what it shows is this, this gradual obsession that he develops towards her. Because Sharky, because that's part of the story. He does develop an obsession towards her. And this isn't, I didn't see a lot of cops developing obsessions for prostitutes, but you know what? I can see it happening. They're thinking not with their brain, but something else. And
well, we did have somebody that worked for us that married a stripper.
Yeah. We had
turn out well.
That happened at West Hollywood too. There was the body shop. A deputy started dating one of them and married her. But I think that lasted. To my knowledge, they were just a little bit of generation before me. But
been so long, I don't remember. I remember it, but I don't remember where.
Yeah, that guy transferred out. I don't know whatever happened. But yeah, well, here's the thing. A lot of guys would go in those places, and the strippers were all over you. And I don't mean like they were all over you sexually. They just were all over you, talking to the deputy or the cop. And they were always very friendly. So you got a paycheck, you got a pension, you got health benefits. I don't know.
Yep.
But the deception's a different. The obsession's a different way, right? We're talking about the obsession of Sharky with her, which is a big part of the movie. He develops an obsession for her as he does this. There's surveillance, and it's interesting because, he's the one that monitors it at night. So he's taking his clothes off to go to bed. She's taking her clothes off to go to bed at the same time. I go, this is just weird, how they do this. But what I didn't believe was legitimate on this, though, is how high class a lifestyle she lives. So she's a kept woman, I guess, by Victor. And most high class. This is not the case with most high class call girls. They're not doing this. They're not living this.
Well, didn't Earl Holliman set her up?
Oh yeah, maybe it was Earl Holliman. Yeah,
he bought the apartment or some crap like that she was going to live in. He couldn't divorce his wife or whatever.
Yeah, she was doing but she was doing him because Victor wanted his influence.
He wanted the influence.
And then
she
supposedly falls in love with him.
This is not the typical life of I just don't see it as the typical life of a high class call girl. That's my opinion. But I would have thought if Holliman, they would have known this ahead of time if they got search warrants. Who owned that place, right? And then then if you walk in, oh yeah, the guy running for governor, he rents this place for her. We want a wiretap on it. Then that guy would have been Danger Will Robinson. We're not going to do that. The lieutenant would never let it happen. So that just this how this all played out this is the unbelievable part of the movie. I'd have to read the book to see how they managed it in the book, but I didn't necessarily agree with it. See, the whole point of the wall pre 9/11 was the FBI was abusing wiretaps. Criminal Division would go, yeah, there was in 1971 there was the Church Commission or committee that after Watergate they jammed up the FBI and the CIA and how they handle stuff, and they put safeguards in place, and those safeguards got abused by the Obama administration's Justice Department to go after Trump. That's exactly what happened. And and it was interesting, all those guys ended up getting paid off who did that by the Biden administration. They won their lawsuits magically, right? They settled them all. And so all these guys who actually violated the law got settled law. Rachel he was rating David Kennedy, the son of Robert. I didn't know that. She dated one of the Kennedys.
Ew.
Who hasn't dated one of
boy.
the Kennedys? Who hasn't dated one of the Kennedys? I guess.
Well, at least she lived.
Yeah, at least she
Oh,
lived. But here's the thing, we also get to see a little more of Arch, although I didn't show him in the scene. He talks about Sharky gets to know a little bit of his team, and Papa's been shot a few times, and Arch talks about when he went into I think we said it was domestic. I can't remember what it was. Somebody pointed a gun at him, and he embraced this concept of Zen, and how I just didn't want to be there. Well, yeah, that happens when somebody points a gun at you. You just don't want to be there. But he talks about his personality.
Yeah, you want to be anywhere else.
Anywhere else. Can I disappear? Can Zen make me disappear? And that comes up later. But I like I said, I like Arch as a character. I think as he gets in the final scene with the shooting, it's a funny scene after he gets shot, surprisingly. But I don't know, Bernie Casey, he did a good job in this, John, right? He's even though he's former NFL
receiver for the Rams, but he played in a lot of stuff. He really got into movies. There was one called The Gargoyle where he played the head gargoyle. They'd come alive at night. It was an actually very well done movie. But yeah, he's played in a lot of stuff. He's a good actor.
Yeah. And
Revenge of the Nerds.
Was he in the Revenge of the Nerds? I didn't know that.
Yeah. He was the head guy of the black
of Lamba
fraternity.
Lamba.
Yep.
He was the head guy for Lamba Lamba.
Yep. Because nobody else would give them it, so they gave them their title. Yep.
Yeah.
For their frat house.
Yeah, I got a picture. He's passed away now, right? I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Passed away. Yeah, he has. But
yeah, I like. He was a good character.
Yeah, but I remember him mostly for this role, and I liked him. Now that you say it, I do remember from the Revenge of the Nerds. He did. I guess he did. Casey began his acting career in the movie Guns of the Magnificent Seven, so he was in the sequel for Magnificent Seven. I didn't know that. Did you guys know that?
Yeah, he was in the third one.
Yeah.
The original is the best movie ever made, just about. But all the other ones were eh.
He played, there you go. I was just going to say that. He played in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. He was the history teacher, Mr. Ryan. And, but I remember mostly for this movie, I liked the character. I liked the interplay between him and Papa the most. And if somebody asked me, hey, Brian Keith, can you remember what movie he played? And I would think of this movie as well, just because I just enjoyed the character actors the most in this thing.
Yeah. Brian Keith also played. You ever watch Nevada Smith with Steve McQueen?
Yes. Yeah.
He played Samuel Colt.
Yeah.
I taught him how to shoot.
And this was, I wrote down the comment from Papa. You don't like anything good. This is when they're talking about food. You don't like anything good. So I go, to me, that was like, okay, that's typical.
Oh, we
two
had
partners in the car jamming each other up. Where we're going to go eat? I don't want to eat there. How come you don't like hot links or this or that or all this good stuff? No, I got to get
used to be a daily
salad.
That was a daily. Like there's three of us rolling around, and it was me and another partner, big German guy, and then our other partner was black. Well, he said, I'm tired of eating white food. And I'm like, what do you mean you're tired of eating white food? And he's like, I'm tired of eating. I said, we had Mexican yesterday. And he goes, that's close to white food. He goes, I want to eat some black food. So we're like, okay, where do you want to go? We'll eat where you want to go today. You name it. He goes, I want to go to Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. So we go up in Firestone's area up there on, I think it's on Slauson. And the whole time, like, they're going to spit in our food. He's like, no, they won't. No, they won't. They like cops. And so we go in the front door, and it goes silent, and everybody's staring at the front door, and he looks at us. He says, we can't eat here.
Did you guys go to the hot link place?
Oh, yeah. We went back to Stops.
Yeah, Stops.
Yeah. I never accepted the challenge. I was not going to eat the hottest link there because you guys know I'm a wimp when it comes to the hot stuff. So
me too.
It wasn't that hot.
Yeah, I didn't have to prove anything, Well, did they have one where they piled on a bunch of stuff and you had to eat the?
But that's when you're off training. They'd pile it with whatever they could. But As somebody who likes spicy food, it didn't bother me.
Oh, really? Can I
That
have a
made
second
him-
one?
Yeah, Matt threw up.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, that's kind of like West Hollywood. We had that Okie Dog.
Yeah.
And you get off training, they give you a giant tortilla. They put a couple of hot dogs in it, some cheese, some this, kimchi, because they're all Korean.
Ugh.
And I mean, it had everything in it. I wolfed that thing down. I said, ooh, I need another one. And they're all like, oh, I loved it. That shit was good.
Yeah. But that guy was also fencing stuff. The guy who owned
was he?
Dog, yeah, he had 2 locations, and every little tweaker that was when they weren't turning tricks, they were doing burgs, and they were selling it to him. He was fencing that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, the one there now it's Astro Burger, but before
he maintained good relationships with us. But he was buying their crap. Oh yeah.
Yeah, the second one, which was around the corner and down a few blocks. Yeah, that was the one that all the dirt bags hung out at.
Yeah, it was.
I wouldn't eat that. You couldn't pay me to eat that one.
I actually never ate at that place at all. But
you didn't eat an Okie Dog?
I did not eat Okie Dogs.
Oh man, it was.
Once I was off training, and because while I was on training, I got access to a donut during my shift. That was it. And you want a donut? We'd go down to Maggie's Donuts. Remember that's it. Every night. That's all my training officer ate. He had like 5 kids, so I think maybe it was
mine like Winchell's at Crescent Heights and Santa Monica.
So I just made sure I ate really well before shift and hoped it lasted me through because occasionally I got a donut, but it's no.
We'd stop at Pink's or Tail of the Pup if they were still open.
So I when I started working on my own, I generally packed a lunch, so but I had a partner occasionally. When I was working with a partner, I didn't pack a lunch. We would go out to eat. But sometimes I like to get a nice, good place, though. I mean, I did eat at the Rainbow every now and then. And when you could sneak out and grab a bite, they had the Sunset Barbecue every now and then. And but yeah, if I was going to eat there, I wanted good food. I didn't go because they had a lot of good restaurants there.
Yeah.
If you're going to spend money, go get good.
That was on the east.
We didn't have.
Yeah, where you're at, they didn't. No, you could go out and get a real, and they give you can get a really good steak, and they give you a decent price on it as a cop, right? Because this is where the rich people.
We got
play,
Tams.
So I know.
Yeah, Paul.
$2 Tams. $2 Tams.
All right, we gotta get back on track here. So we got the politician and the prostitute. This is the next scene. So this is where very clear linkage between and this is where they should have, if they did their warrants, they'd have known this was his place, right? But suddenly they figure out that it's this guy running for governor who is the sugar daddy for the prostitute here, right? And we see it here, and these guys, of course, everybody has to watch her change and do everything she's doing, right? And when does she take her shower? Well, she takes a shower. Okay, we'll be there around 5:30, right?
In case she starts a little early, we
make sure we catch it all, right? And so they're all there with their binoculars talking, and then he walks in, and of course they realize, ooh, this is of course not good. But the thing that I got is, okay, he's obsessed with her, right? And he got jealous. The character Sharky got jealous at this whole thing because I think he's been watching her this whole time, and he's idealized her, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then he finds out that she's sleeping with just a politician. So notice how I said that. It's not a corporate guy, just a politician, right? And now he suddenly realized, because she hasn't been entertaining anybody in the place, right? So he's got this idealized version of what she is. And the Washington Post thought the movie may make a decent movie, but it tries to be 3 or 4 novels at once. And like I said, Gambit, the thing I liked the most about the movie were the character actors. I thought they did a good job, particularly Sharky's machine there, his squad. They were fun to watch, and the interplay. I think that's what made the movie the most. And I don't know if I was partners with Sharky here, I'd have recognized the obsession going on here, and I'd have probably checked them a little bit sooner. And the fact that they didn't know that this guy was the guy paying the bills, sloppy police work, in my mind. Right, Scott?
There's a lot of things wrong with the way they did this investigation, and the list is too long to go.
3 hours long.
We don't have enough time to go over all the things that were done wrong or not even correct. I mean, not even in the sphere of being correct. I mean, it's like, come on, 3 guys standing there with binoculars and nobody notices them. There's that whole other side of apartments, and nobody looks out the window to see 3 guys.
Yeah, they're all right at the window. Well, you see that later when you find out the hitman's doing it too. And you're like, what the hell?
Come on. There's so many bad, but like you said, I like the banter with Papa and Arch, and because but you can't do that in police movies anymore, because everybody go, oh, that's racist, or that, like I said, back then there was no filter. You got if somebody found that you had a soft spot, or you at least get a little bit angry, boy, everybody would just start needling you.
Yeah, you had to be thick-skinned, otherwise it got piled on, right? Yeah, Gambit, you're right. The directorial effort is an exceptionally accomplished cop film. It was an entertaining movie. It kept my attention, even though I didn't believe in a lot of the stuff. But
I thought the production values were cheap. It was probably a very low-budget film.
Oh, so Roger and Ebert gave it 3 out of 4 stars. But Dominique here, or whatever, she thinks that he proposes to her, the politician, which is really not workable, or that he's going to buy her a house. He found a house for her, and we find out later that she's been trafficked. She was taken as a young girl, and she's been trafficked through her teens and into a young adulthood since 14.
From 12 years old.
And he's offering her a normal life, I guess. The politician's offering her a normal life. And so she's excited about that. And of course, that goes against our crime boss, Victor's desires. He just wants her to keep the politician on the hook. And so, once this all happens, ultimately, Victor, he does a play where his goal is to kill her, and then now the politician's on the hook because he's sleeping with a woman who was part of an organization and was killed, a controversy, and that keeps him on the hook even deeper. But because she's kind of the loose cannon, right? She wants to get away from the life, and Victor says, "No, I need you to keep this guy on the hook," kind of thing is what's going on. So I don't know. What'd you think of the scene, John?
Well, it's fine. And then, of course, she has to fool around with Victor, her pimp for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
But, she wants to get out because she believes Earl Holliman is going to buy her a house and she's going to be normal.
Right.
And he's like,
doesn't she keep saying, I'm a dancer?
Baby.
I'm a dancer. That's what she keeps saying. Yes.
Yep.
All right. Sharky's jealous, so too, right?
Oh, yeah. He's fallen in love. Or in lust.
In lust, yes. So,
as all good peeping Toms do.
as all good peeping
exactly.
Toms. This is legalized peeping Tom, right?
Yeah.
He's got
with an illegal wiretap and surveillance, but hey.
So we got a comment. Love Shark Machine. Yeah, it's a good movie. It's obviously we're talking when we look at it from a law enforcement perspective, we're like, oh yeah, right, whatever, but it was entertaining. And this is Victor, right? He's talking, what's he talking? He was a mainstream Italian actor though, right, John? So
yeah, Vittorio Gassman. Yeah, he did Fellini films. He did all sorts of stuff. He'd been a star over there for 50, 60 years.
Yeah, he said he was a leading star in one of the in Italy, meaning he was one of their best. Is kind of how when I looked him up, And he had kind of the, even as he got older, he had kind of these good looks, right? He was a good-looking guy, and you should take some lessons from him, John. He knew how to keep it together as he got older.
Oh, that's just wrong. Honey, they're picking on me. So you come over here and whoop your ass.
Did you ever have a white suit jacket like that, though?
No, never.
No.
I get food on it, trust me.
Nobody did dress like Don Johnson.
I never wore white. My pasta sauce will be all over it. Come here, honey.
So we do got the cops who are the Budweiser crowd. And
you remember Scott? Say hi to Scott. Scott's been in the restaurant. That's Scott.
We're having a lot of fun at John's expense. I hope that's okay.
Always. I'll let you guys get to it.
I asked John after we ate at his restaurant, how many guys got whacked in here?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he comes over to the Italian American Club and he sees Nick, the piano player and singer, all in black, and he goes, "Has he got a hit later?"
Are you guys on a break?
No.
Oh,
No.
There's 100 people watching you, honey. Oh, am I going to get beat up?
Does he still think you're a dancer? I am a dancer. You're right. So she wants to be something different. She doesn't want to keep turning tricks, right? Even if they are high class tricks. And you see it. Sharky says she is a dancer. So he's completely lost his mind in terms of being infatuated with this gal, and of course we this is the next scene. We get introduced to the ghost, which we can roll into, and and this is so Victor realizes he's got a loose end. He's got a Dominique who's not going along with the program, who's pushing back, and he wants to maintain those tight. Here's our bad guy here, and I liked him as a character actor. He played really good. I mean, he doesn't say a lot, right? I mean, you get one kind of real exchange between him and his brother Victor, and he ends up killing his brother. But
Henry Silva.
Yeah, he played a really good bad guy in this thing, and he
plays a bad guy in everything.
Everything, yeah, and
he's done a lot of stuff. I met him in West Hollywood.
Did you really?
In the day. I stopped at one of the bars on a real nice restaurant and bar on Sunset.
Uh-huh.
And there's two other people, and he's sitting there. I go, "Henry Silva?" And he goes, "Yeah." And we sat there and talked about movies and stuff. Very nice man. He spoke fluent Spanish and Italian.
Right, and he's been in some like he was in a movie with Chuck Norris or Steven Seagal, and
Code Blue, the one with Chuck Norris, where
Above the Law with Code of Silence with Chuck Norris.
Code of Silence.
And Above the Law, because I remember him in these things, because he plays a heavy in a lot of the stuff. He doesn't look like he's that big a guy, though, right?
No, he's tall and thin. He's about 6 foot. He's thin. Well, he's fast now, but
he's of Sicilian and Spanish descent, right? And he grew up in Spanish Harlem.
Fluent in both. Where he really made it is when he did is, and this person here, Gambit, saying it. Yeah, he went to Italy and got in a lot of foreign films, and got famous in Germany, France, and Italy.
Yeah, he was in an episode with of Alfred Hitchcock Presents, But if I saw him in the film, I remember this movie. Because, like I said, the characters in the movie, the character actors really carried the movie as far as I was concerned, and his character is one of them, right? And so he goes and he kills. He thinks he's killing Dominique, and we find out later that she's actually out of town, and it was her girlfriend that was staying there, and he uses a shotgun on her. So, and that blows her face off. So everybody thinks that she's dead, or Domino, I think it's Domino, and everybody thinks she's dead. And it's interesting because he comes out of the place, instead of taking the elevator, decides to take the stairs, and this is where we have our first confrontation between the ghost, which is what they eventually call him, and and Burt Reynolds, or Sharky, and he manages to escape, right? But
Don't they always?
I just felt his role was an excellent role as the Ghost or Billy Score, and the fact that he's using the drugs, he's all hyped up on drugs. You see him snorting coke before he commits the murder, right? And
Oh, yeah.
and you do see the scene where he's watching from across he's in the same building as Sharky is, watching.
Yeah, that was the funny part. When they
Yeah.
scan the building, and you got Sharky and his guys, and you got him like 2 doors over, and they're all like this. You're like, what?
Yeah, he played he was in the Manchurian Candidate too, remember? And with Frank Sinatra, and he was as Alpha points out here, he was in the original Ocean's 11.
Yes,
So
he was. 1960.
He had a really long career.
Yep.
And but like I said, when I see him in something else, I think of this movie and this character that he played here. So I think it was the first time I remember Silva was for his pilot movie Buck Rogers, 25th Century in 1979. I don't remember that one, Alpha, but
yeah, I do.
Do you?
Yeah, he played the bad guy in that too.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like Buck Rogers was Gil Gerard, and they had the female that was his partner, and then he was one of the like a evil minister, on another planet.
And we just missed our other character actor. I forget his name now. And he plays kind of their guy that does all the electronic stuff. I know a guy. He's that guy.
Yeah,
right?
Richard Libertini.
Libertini, yeah. And
he played in a lot of stuff. Usually played the same type of role, or he played a Jewish guy, a rabbi, because he had that beard and the look. He played a lot of the same roles, but he always played the goofball or the techie.
Right. Yeah. I was going to use the word egghead, kind of the egghead guy. So Richard Libertini, and as Nosh, that was his character's name, Nosh.
Yep.
And so she gets killed, of course, and this is another unbelievable part, right? I guess we got to call these out. And they don't call homicide. They're going to do it themselves, right? And I'm like,
yeah.
Don't try this.
Having a shit fit.
Don't try this at home, kids. Don't try this at home, kids. I'm sure these are all top-notch investigators, but homicide is a very specialty. That's a specialty. You kind of want those guys involved. If this was real life, right? If this was real life, homicide would have been there, and they'd have been working it together, right? Because homicide would have said, okay, these guys have done a lot of legwork. They're obviously emotionally invested, which means I can get work out of them. Which means I can get work out of them. Right? And we'll partner up with them, and we'll put the case together, but we'll use these guys to help run down leads and do some of the work. That's probably what would have happened, right, Scott? They wouldn't have butt him out, right? They'd have said, at least not on our apartment. They said, okay, we're in this together. Let's do this together.
No, we probably had the best probably still do have probably one of the best homicide units in the world.
Right.
I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah. If it was a gang homicide, they basically say, hey, you guys do the voodoo that you do. We'd find out who the suspect is, usually within a day or two. And then they'd go, hey, you want to write a warrant on it? Yeah, we'll do it. I mean, and they were the first ones to say, yeah, we couldn't have solved this without, OSS, the gang unit, because they weren't the guys up there going, oh, look at us, we did this. And they were, like I said, they're probably one of the best homicide investigation units. Like when we went to London, we were talking about that with the guys from Scotland Yard, and they're like, oh, if we have a homicide, there's like 25 people assigned. Yeah. And then when we told them, yeah, we have 2. And they're like, what? They thought that was incredible. That there was only 2 people assigned to a murder.
All right, Bernie Casey. Yeah, he was the hitman in Never Say Never Again, and I do remember him from that one. And that was the one that was it the one? Yeah, like I said,
Never Again was with Sean Connery when he came back.
With Sean Connery, he came back, right? And he was a hitman, incredible in the hitman. Okay, no, never say no. He wasn't a hitman and never said he was a CIA guy, and then he was hitman in the movie in 1972. Okay, sorry about that, Gambit. Thank you for getting that correct for me. But yeah, I mean, they would have partnered with Homicide, and Homicide, because you know what, they had the most information. They've been tracking her. They've been tracking who's who in the zoo. Of course, Homicide's going to come in. Well, let's sit down and talk about it. Okay, let's divide up responsibilities. Yeah, you guys are still engaged, and and I can understand their sentiment. This was our case. She was killed on our watch. We want to help, right? And they would partner with them, right? Unless they're too emotionally involved, right? And because it's common sense to me. That would be common sense. So this whole thing where they cut out, and here's our the lieutenant here getting pissed off. You didn't do what? You didn't do what? You didn't call Homicide. But here's the other thing. I'd have said, okay, we're done playing around, guys. We're calling Homicide. It's and I'd have called him myself, and he didn't call him, which is interesting, right? So I guess Sharky must have had some sway on the department. But yeah, this was the part that was unbelievable to me.
Keep it. We're not already ruined the case. I mean, how do you bring that evidence from all this wiretapping into the court?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you're building this huge case. You're building this huge case based on an illegal wiretap, and then you took the homicide away from the homicide investigators.
Yeah,
you guys are top. No wonder their advice is the worst place to be on that department.
Well, yeah, okay. Let's roll with let's see, the ghost, because we got a few more scenes to go here, and this is let's see here. I got to remember this scene. Here she is. Now she comes back, right? He's almost like he's staying there after she's murdered. This whole obsession thing keeps going on, and I think she might remember him being the repairman because he was masquerading as a repair guy for the elevator, and winked at each other, I guess is probably the best way to say it. And now he's in her apartment, and he was kind of staying there, so his obsession continued. But she's alive, right? And so now obviously everybody puts it together that she wasn't killed. It was her friend. And of course, here we have this confrontation between the guy who was stalking her, right? Burt Reynolds, Sharky here, and 1980s fashions. There was a simpler time there, Tom. These 1980s fashion and the big hair, right? The women all had the big hair back in the 1980s as well, right? Had the hair blare.
Farrah Fawcett type hair, a lot of waves.
Yeah. Well, that was the 70s and into the 80s, and I could tell you, living at home with a bunch of teenage sisters I stayed in the basement. The bathroom was nearby, and I tell you, the hair blower was going for at least an hour. You could not, So it's like, I guess I'm done sleeping. I might as well get up and get something breakfast before I go to school. But yeah, so you got the 80s hair, the 80s clothes, and he finally explains who he is, and that is her friend is dead, and he takes her away. He takes her to a place where he can hide her, right? Because he knows the ghost is coming for her. Billy Score is coming for her. So I don't know. I think she reacted. I don't know if I'd have trusted just one guy, or you would think she wanted a little more information out of him, right? Just this one guy in her apartment.
No bad.
Yeah, the problem with this movie, they had to cut out.
No identifying himself. And then she's so nonchalant. Who are you? Here's a strange guy in your apartment, and it doesn't raise any type of alarm.
Right. And he does fit the definition of a stalker, even though he does have a warrant, right? And
right. No, he doesn't have a warrant. It's not a warrant.
So, John, what'd you think of this scene where he finds out she's alive, and then we have this confrontation? Or meeting, I guess.
The vocabulary in that was very because it wouldn't have happened in real life. She'd have been screaming bloody murder and who the fuck are you? And And I'm calling the police. I am the police.
Yeah,
You know,
I
and
am the police.
yeah, and then
Except
she leaves with him.
She's used to entertaining strange men, so maybe it wouldn't have been.
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
yeah.
Maybe it wouldn't have been that strange. Come home from a trip and here's some guy in your house.
Did Victor send you?
Yeah. Who's Victor? I'm here to rock you.
Yeah.
So anyway, so there was a lot of unbelievable parts about the movie, but now we got our lovebirds together. They don't know they're going to be lovebirds. He's certainly thinking about it, and of course he's got a protector. He realizes he's in his head. I think he has gotten the phone call between now and this time that all of the tapes had been. Maybe this is right after the scene. So he's got his machine together. He's got good information together. People know that they've been doing videos of the place. They got the governor or the governor's candidate. I guess he becomes governor-elect on video with her. And suddenly most of the tapes disappear, right? And this is what's and Sharky, yeah, here he is. He's having this conversation right now. Most of it's missing from the squad room. So it's been stolen from the squad room. And Sharky's realizing that not only is there corruption politically, but they have influence in the Atlanta Police Department where he's working at, and in the evidence room. That evidence is taken. I don't think I've ever heard of evidence being stolen out of any of our evidence rooms on the sheriff's department, but obviously I wouldn't know that for sure.
Happened in LAPDs.
Yeah, and it happened in New York. I mean, we did we do the movie together, Prince of the City, John? That was part of that.
No,
was
somebody
inspired.
else. Yeah, but it happened there.
Yeah, and so that he realizes, Sharky realizes, I can only trust a handful of people, this crew, because he doesn't know where the corruption goes, right? And he realizes that they have more influence.
Come here, buddy.
And so he realizes they're more powerful than he thinks, and he's got to put her somewhere and hide her somewhere, and ends up taking her to his childhood home. So, which is what she wants. She just wants a house.
Exactly.
She has to sleep with.
Yeah.
And a white picket fence.
All right, a house with a cop, a house with a politician, doesn't matter. It's a house, right? And,
I'm a dancer.
She could be a dancer, right? What's that song with she dances for money, Lola. Yes. So she dances for money too, right? So.
Yeah.
I gotta let the Huskies out.
You gotta let the Huskies out? Okay.
Yeah, well, I'm still online.
Is that what you call it? Okay. All right.
Husky.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just wrong.
Pet name,
that's just wrong.
Is that your pet name, John?
Number 2 Husky. The wife went in the pool, so they wanted to go out and be with the wife.
Ah.
I'll go out there after we're done.
Right. Well,
I guess you're rich. I can't afford a pool.
Well, excuse me.
So he's explaining,
hey, more money than me when you worked with all that overtime.
Probably.
So we also had the crummy '80s cars. We after we went through the oil embargo, the cars just didn't get it for a while there. They were not so hot, right? And so this is him. He's taking her. Of course, Atlanta gets a lot of rain, right? So he's taking her home or to his place, his childhood home. And it was really interesting when he gets her there because let's see here because she sees the picture of her on his wall above his bed. So what are you doing in bed looking at those pictures or those naked pictures of her? And she asked that question, but
yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm caught. I'm busted. So anyway, so he's going to protect her. And then we see this in the movie every now and then. I'll take him to a place nobody knows to protect him. You still there, John?
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay. So that's another one we don't normally see. We don't normally see the cop taking them to their house for protection. but of course, in this movie, he can't trust anybody. So this is why he's got to do this.
Oh,
Pretty convenient. Pretty convenient, right? And Atlanta, they're a big sized department, so yeah, I don't know. I think he'd have some more people in the department that he can trust, but
well, yeah, but it doesn't fit in the show.
doesn't fit.
Yeah,
the
it
show.
doesn't move the plot along.
Doesn't.
That's
Yeah.
the problem with a lot of cop shows. And
All right,
let's going on. And, you know, when he was talking about the tapes being stolen,
yeah,
you know, the ghost was outside the door getting ready to go in and kill
Nosh.
But
Yeah.
you don't see that because they cut it out of the movie. They wanted to make it shorter. It's all budget issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
They talk about it later, but they don't show it.
Right. And he had family there, so you wonder where his family was. For whatever
Yeah, they're
reason,
gone too.
I wonder if there's a longer version of Sharky's Machine, because I seem to remember a scene where Nosh is getting killed. I'll have to run it. See, director's cut. See if there's a director's cut on this. There's no definitive director's cut of Sharky's Machine, and for some ways, the film was.
Yeah, I think they cut it out before they put it out because it was a time limit and money and everything else.
Yeah, because it was actually a fairly long movie.
Yeah, if you look at the production values, though, it was not high end.
Oh, got it. So, I don't know. Maybe our audience can help us. Was this Reynolds' first director movie? I don't know if he did one before or not. So, I thought they were trying to get somebody else to direct it, and maybe they told him, "Why don't you do it?" And then he did it, right? So,
yeah, a lot of times you can't get one because you got to pay them too much money. Same with stars.
Well, let's roll the next scene. I think it's she's alive, and well, no, we already did that one. Let's roll down to. I want to do the scene chins. I mean, we had the confrontation, but I want to do the scene chins. I think there were two scenes. So he's hiding her, and of course Victor's looking for him. In one of the scenes, you see JoJo, somebody that supports Sharky, gets run over by a car.
Yeah.
Because he's going to talk to whoever the mayor or police chief or whatever say to be supportive of him, and that was somebody from his old unit that supported.
Yeah, that was his old partner.
Yeah,
and that was played by what the hell's his name? Shit, I forgot. But Joe Mascolo. He's been in a lot of TV shows. In fact, he did 20 years on Days of Our Lives and a couple other soap operas. And he's a Korean War vet. There were a lot of vets in this movie.
of vets. Well, this movie was interesting. When I think of this movie, I think of the bad guys. I think of Billy Score as the Ghost, nicknamed the Ghost. But I also think of these two Chin guys. The Chin brothers, I guess.
Oh yeah.
And because I thought, wow, so we got these two Asian guys who are used by this criminal organization to take people out, and they took the drug dealer out that had been supplying Billy Score his dope because they wanted to close off that linkage, right? And the loose end. And that guy was a former football player too. The guy that died, that black guy, he had played football. I looked him up.
Kitten.
Yes, Kitten.
Yeah.
And but I just remember these guys. He gets in a fight down in Nosh's basement with these two guys, and they end up knocking him out. I mean, he's putting up a good fight. This is Sharky, and then he's kidnapped and put on a boat somewhere, and they're going to torture him to get information out of him. But it was these assassins, I guess, that had an impact on me. When you think of the movie, I go, oh yeah, I remember that, and I remember the Ghost more than I even remember Rachel Ward, which is, just because the whole scene, right? The whole scene, right? It's just that they got these two short guys that are beating the hell out of each other with nunchucks and killing folks. And so here they got him captured. He's in the boat, and then of course, I guess the scene that got my attention was when Sharky gets his fingers cut off, which is right here. And of course, they got to bring Smiley back as the corrupt cop who's on the inside, as the protagonist here against Sharky, right?
Yeah, then you put it all together.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, what'd you think of the Chin brothers and them as villains? How that played in the movie, and that the fact they brought Smiley back as the bad guy.
Yeah, it puts it back together because he screwed up that first thing, and you didn't realize. But also, when all the tapes were missing, I started thinking, oh, maybe Charles Durning, because he's the lieutenant and he's afraid of everything. Maybe he's the one on the tape. No, it was Smiley the whole time. I didn't know that. They put that all together at the end.
Right. But all right, what'd you think of the two Chinese assassins here?
Well, the only problem I had is I'm used to the 8 martial arts movies where, and then the sound comes out.
Well, I will say in a real fight scene, I mean, and I think MMA kind of shows it. The martial arts or like karate or whatever it is, it has its limitations, right? And a good tough guy who knows how to fight can overcome.
Got to move in on him.
Yeah, because hey, we're gonna hit back and we're gonna use what and Sharky's bigger than both of them. That's 2-on-1 though, but
yeah, he was winning for a while.
Yeah, but I think MMA kind of dispelled the myth that karate by itself or any of these other ones by themselves. It's you may be good at, like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is kind of it's Jiu-Jitsu, but a little bit judo and everything else mixed in there.
Ground and pound wrestling.
Ground and pound, right? And it isn't the forms that they do in these martial arts. It's it's a hardcore knock 'em, sock 'em street fighting, right? And that's what Sharky's all about. And now they want to know where she's at, and if he tells them where he's at, they'll just kill him slowly. But he doesn't do that. And him getting his fingers cut off was another thing that I remember from this movie. It's like, and he says, well, they got 10 fingers. They got how many digits on each finger, so they're going to cut them one digit at a time. And you remember the line that Smiley says, "Come on, Sharky, go ahead, cry out. It's okay. You don't be a tough guy."
Yeah, we're in the middle of the lake. Nobody's going to hear you. It's okay. Cry out.
It's okay. Yeah, cry out. And but the fact that they brought the guy because this leads back to that first scene. Did he do it on purpose? Did he disrupt that on purpose to give the dope dealer a chance to get away because he's on the take, right? Maybe.
Right.
Maybe, right?
Or he's trying to get Sharky killed.
Right. Yeah. But also, it just the way, if you remember, Smiley's kind of just the way he was sing-song about this whole thing. Oh, come on, Shark, it's okay. He's just kind of needling him, and this is for keeps, and he's kind of having a good time at it. He's enjoying this. Sharky's the case ace, so to speak. The guy that puts the cases together. And here this guy who probably couldn't put a good case together, but he's been corrupted, is now in charge. You see that dynamic.
Well, everybody calls them names.
Yeah.
Dumbass, idiot, waste of time. Well, yeah. Now he's getting it back.
Yeah. Come on. See, he says this. Come on, that's gotta hurt. Go ahead and it's painful, huh? And he's just laughing and because I remember the torture in this scene from the movie. It's like getting a manicure. It's not that big a deal. It's just needling them.
Yeah.
So you do it. I do enjoy when old Smiley here buys the farm. And when he says step out, and this is kind of that movie ESP when there's 3 bad guys and one bad guy tells the other guy to step out, that Sharky's going to get the upper hand here. That's coming, right?
Oh yeah.
You just wait.
I've seen that in 100 different movies.
Yeah, I just you're just waiting for that. How is he gonna get out of this? It's the typical John Wayne or not James Bond thing. All right, James Bond, the laser's gonna eventually cut you. We'll leave you here to your death, and then of course nobody's there to watch him die, and he gets out. Right? That's he does his Houdini stuff.
Well,
get out.
Austin Powers, they make a reference to, I'm going to put you in a ridiculously easy way to escape.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly right. Oh, that was hilarious.
Here he is. He says, "Take some break, guys. Take some air." And you're a crybaby, Sharky. So he's needling him, but as soon as he tells him I take a break, I once mixed up a yakuza with a jacuzzi. And now I'm in hot water with the Japanese mom.
Is that a
all right, Alpha?
dad joke? That was a good one.
Yeah, but if you ever been in a fight with the old karate guys, they play this. If that's all you got, then and you're dealing with somebody.
I saw the Yakuza. That was a good movie.
You got because they're limited. They teach them just this very limited form of martial arts. So, and I like the fact that Sharky could get the upper hand on these guys if it was a fair fight. But I thought just the whole dynamic doing these two evil twins was good for the movie. I don't know, what do you think, Scott?
Yeah, I don't know. It could have been done a bunch of different ways. And why all of a sudden do we need ninjas? I mean, come on. All of a sudden we got ninjas going around beating people to death with nunchucks. All they were missing, they were wearing all black. All they were missing was a hood. I mean, come on.
Right.
So to me, it was like you could have done it so many different ways.
Right.
It's just,
right.
Like that whole martial up. My hands are dangerous. My hands are registered dangerous weapons. Well, so is my gun. So big deal. But yeah, they bring in the ninjas, and it's like, why do I thought it would have been better had he goes back to her apartment or something to up something, and Smiley's there, and Smiley knocks him out. That would have been a better way for me than.
Right.
And then you use the ninjas to beat the guy to death on the street. Why not just use a silenced pistol? It's much cleaner and faster. You wouldn't be standing there watching. I mean, come on.
Exactly.
To me, it was a little over the top.
But they made for interesting characters, and Anyways, I thought, and then they torture the guy. They torture Sharky.
Yeah.
And here he is. He pushes him up, and he knows where he keeps his gun. Pulls his gun out and shoots him, and I think he kills one of the chins right away. And then he
harpoons the other guy.
I harpoons the other guy, which again, okay, that's pretty unrealistic.
I like the harpoon. That was cool.
It was cool. There's a cool factor in it, but it was unrealistic.
Yeah, exactly. Very. Especially when the guy's behind you, he goes, "Ah!" And you turn and shoot him with the harpoon. It's like, really?
Yeah, nothing like announcing your attack.
Yeah, exactly. I'm here. Shoot me.
Obviously, they failed 101 ninja school because ninjas are supposed to be quiet and sneak up.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's why there are a lot of production values and things in this movie that were very cheaply done.
Yeah.
Stuff that you see in other movies, and it could have been better.
Now we got one more long scene to go after this one finishes out. I know we've been talking a little.
You got 2 minutes, dude.
You got 2 minutes, yeah. One. And this is taking down the ghost. I think if we go ahead and just roll that one, Martine, here we go. So now they're going to Victor's office. They're going to take him down. And here's the team. And I enjoyed this scene, probably the best scene of the movie, where they're going to take down Victor. And what they don't know is Victor's already had a confrontation with his brothers. Brothers killed him. And Sharky wants somebody that killed who tried to kill his girlfriend and killed was it Tiffany was the name of the girlfriend? Tiffany
blew her face off.
And they want somebody, and they find Victor dead. And of course, I think he was kicking him. Sharky was kicking him because he wanted to really take him to jail. I've seen guys get a little emotional, but at work, I don't think I've seen him kicking a dead body, but
because he's really going to feel it.
Where did these I can imagine the autopsy. Where
are these post-mortem bruising come from?
But now he gets a chance to see the ghost. And this guy, remember this guy? He's played in a bad guy in some movies. And And I just like how Papa says, "Let's talk here." He sticks his baton between the legs and lifts up. So we're going to talk and watch it. Yeah, there he is. He's got so Brian Keith has stuck his hand down between his legs with his baton, and he's lifted upward. And he's come on, Monk, we're going to talk, right? And so he gives them some information on where the guy's going, who he is, where the guy's going, and then they start hunting him in I forget what hotel this was. And so the ghost is trying to escape, and this is where I think probably the best scene between Arch and Sharky comes up. So they're looking for him. They got him trapped, and on a floor, probably one of the top floors where it's a kind of an auxiliary area. It's not open to the public, kind of a maintenance area. And so they're looking for him, and Papa buys it first. They get him trapped in a particular area, and the ghost hears the exchange. They're exchanging gunfire, and he goes towards Papa's at the exit to prevent him from leaving, and he takes on Papa, and you see Papa get shot, right? Or you don't see him get shot, you just hear the shooting back and forth, and he's hit.
But Burt Reynolds announces, "You're at the only exit."
Yeah, I know.
I'm not going to give you any clues which way to go, bad guy.
Stay there.
And not one of them wearing a vest. You're going after an armed and dangerous suspect who's already committed multiple murders, and none of you decide to put a vest on. I don't need that.
Production values, yeah.
And yeah, you're right. They would have been rolling. They'd have put in some kind of tactical vest on, even in 1981, right? And
right.
Well, what he does, first he kills Papa, right, and then he ends up getting a shooting with Arch here, and I think it was this is the shooting with Arch, but the subsequent shooting it's at point blank range. Which lots of times that's how police shootings happen. They can be very close.
Within 6 feet.
Yeah, I think I remember a statistic when I was going through some advanced officer training was most shootings are within 7 feet, and most shootings are over in 7 seconds, and 70% of the rounds are misses. I think for whatever reason I remember that. It was just interesting statistics because people are slapping the trigger and they're excited, and so that's why we teach people to shoot center of mass, because if you're trying to shoot their gun out of their hands, you're going to have 100%
shoot them in the leg.
You can shoot them in the leg, so you got to
shoot them in the leg. This big of a target, shoot them in the leg.
So you got to so you do shoot center of the mass because we understand the dynamics of a panic shooting for the most part. No matter how much training you give some guys, they'll develop some sloppy habits over the years, and 70% of the rounds are misses, right? So
yeah,
that's just a reality, right? So that's why we teach center of mass. So they killed Papa here, and now they're both hunting him down, and they split up. And you also know when they split up, okay, this isn't good. The typical, that way I'll go that way. There's going to be something else going on. Here he says, "You fucked up." There's Papa. But Arch and Sharky's split up now. Now I don't know if I'd have been able to move on quickly and abandoning Papa that quickly. I might have probably wanted to stay with him, but it's the movies, right? But ultimately, Arch has a confrontation with the ghost, and it's a point blank shooting, and he hits the ghost several times. Now, what it doesn't show is the ghost had taken a bunch of narcotics for it, so he's clearly. It showed him he had taken some synthetic heroin in the past, but you could tell I would say he's on meth, is what my guess is, that he snorted meth, and that's given him the energy to keep going here. And he gets hit, and he keeps going. I think that's the other part of this that with this movie reminded me, right? And he got a money from
realistic.
Say that again, John?
That's realistic.
Yeah. Well, right. Yeah. As we all know, a guy can take a round, even a fatal round, and still be in the fight for a while, right? So I think Scott knows that from personal experience. But here it is. Here's the shooting between him and Arch, right? And it's point blank range almost, and he's he screams, and the guy ends up screaming back at him, but doesn't kill. He doesn't ends up not finishing off Arch in the end. Henry Silva in Shoot with Cliff Robertson. I just watched. Okay, I'll look at that one. But it's interesting. After he gets shot, and Sharky now communicates with Arch. I said he couldn't disappear with Zen. And then they have this exchange. Yeah, go get him, Arch. Yeah, go Arch, go get him. You know, Arch keeps saying, Sharky, go get him, go get him. So let's see, Reynolds was attracted to the Shark scene because it was similar to the classic 1944 noir movie, his favorite movie. Yeah, I did look that up. I didn't look it up other than that fact. But here they are at point blank range, and this guy's still going. I think that's what scares you about this guy as the character. He's been hit many times. Arch is down. Of course, when one cop gets shot, it's fatal always. But here's our guy can keep going after multiple rounds. And this is where he screams at him, points the gun to his head, but decides not to shoot him. Who knows why? He's already killed multiple people. Yeah. Maybe this is where the Zen moment, right?
Conscience.
Now he's got a conscience, yeah. But I think this was one of my favorite shots where it's the exchange between him and Sharky too. Sharky finds him and he says, you couldn't zen out of here. No, I couldn't zen out of here. Sharky, go get him. And he has to keep coming back. You all right?
So
I don't know why you asked a dumb question.
That was the comic that they put in the movie.
Are you all right? Of course not. You. Well, I like this. I'm shot.
Sharky. Oh, shut up. Yeah. That
Are
was
you
the
okay? No.
comedy
Of course not. You
release
asked
they
him,
put
I'm
in there.
shot. Oh shit. Yeah. Where the fuck is he? Yeah. I did enjoy the exchange. I don't see this happening in a real shooting, but it was fun. He crawled up towards the stairway over there, so he tells him, and this is where a funny part is. Sharky, I hit his ass, and he kept going right. I think he says something like that, but this is where he keeps calling Sharky back to tell him to go get him. He's got 4 bullets in him. He won't go down.
Yeah, maybe he knows more about Zen than you do.
Yeah, that's the funny part. Oh, you got to let the boys back in.
And the wife, I forgot. I locked the door from the backyard. Force of habit.
So what'd you think of this scene, Scott? This exchange between these? It was comic relief, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it was.
I thought it was fun. I thought it was funny, and it's a buddy. Even though it's a group of them. It's a buddy movie type thing, and
yeah.
I like the comment, so I guess he knows more Zen than you do.
You got to find him and put him down. Okay, I'm going to do that. I'll put him down, right? And I think he does it again. Sharky, and he goes, "Hey, let me go, get him," right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right, Scott. I didn't even think of it. It's a buddy movie, but it's a group of buddies, is what it ends up being. And the funny thing is they accepted Sharky right away, right? So obviously he had a good reputation on the department, and they accepted him as a team, and they followed him. They accepted him as a leader right away. I hear you, Arch. I gotta go. So yeah, that one. Then
I think when somebody gets somebody with a good reputation on a department or something, and has an aw shit moment, and then they show up at your unit. First of all, y'all know the story, even nobody's willing to ask them what happened.
You just before they get there.
Yeah, and so you just kind of accept them in, and they knew, they probably knew that it wasn't his fault, but it was a political move to get him out of or narcotics. So,
right. And he follows our ghost here guy, and he finds him, and the final scene was, I guess anticlimactic. I would say. I thought there would have been a shootout, but the guy wants to kill himself and not go out by Sharky's hand, I guess. But Sharky doesn't want that. He wants some retribution, so he ends up shooting him. And of course, the dramatic scene here he is. Those windows at that level don't just break like that, right? They're altered.
No, it's movies.
It's the movie, so it's got to break, and he shoots him, and he ends up going out the movie. Of course, he knows who he is, Sharky. He talks to him. But yeah, I actually really enjoyed this movie, and like I said, probably because of the characters, and I did like Burt Reynolds. Maybe his later stuff I didn't like as much, but I liked Burt Reynolds in Malone and Gator, and obviously Deliverance, and I think he did a pretty good job in this movie. But I wouldn't say this is an A+ movie. I would say this.
No, it's a B movie.
Yeah, it's a B movie, but
because of the production values, money, and everything else. Oh, and one
Like when
other.
he falls out of the window, you can you can tell it's a total dummy that's falling.
I know.
Yeah. You can tell also by the way, there's one other trivia thing I forgot to mention on the bus in the very beginning. The black lady sitting on the bus.
Yeah.
That was Alveda King.
And she is
Martin Luther King's daughter.
Really?
Oh wow.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this is Atlanta. That's their big hometown. So they obviously recruited her. Here he is, goes to try and kill himself. No, you're going to go out by my hand, not yours. I mean, I would have let him kill himself. Wouldn't have cared. But
are you going to get fired for being 10 minutes over?
No. This is, yeah. We're not, this used to be a part of a radio show, so we're going a little bit over, but now it's just we just have our YouTube and Rumble channel. There he goes. There's our dummy that crashes.
I'll be right back.
Well, we're closing up, Scott. Okay. I think Taps was the movie I paid for when I saw this one. Yeah. So, and of course, we see our two lovebirds end up together.
Forever love.
So the guy who was
the white picket fence and children,
and she gets her little house. We'll see how long it lasts, right? I'm sure she has a lot of emotional scars, and clearly he's obviously in his 40s, and he's not married. Did he? I don't think he ever said he was married and divorced. They didn't do that kind of typical.
They didn't mention any of it.
So you don't know what his background is, but he's definitely not a spring chicken. And
this is true.
He's living in his mom and dad's old home. All right, hey, this was a good movie, and I don't know if I think we're at the end here. I know Scott has checked out here, but we stick on a quick debrief so we can say adios to everybody. Martine, we are at the end of the movie. It was fun catching up with you guys and going over this movie. Good movie, Sharky's Machine. Hey, stick around for a quick debrief, Scott, and Martine, you can take it away.
Y'all come back now, you hear?
Thank you.